Okay, so I thought I'd talk a little more about negative space. And so it was basically like this. I made three videos, one two-part video, so two videos. And, the first one I was sort of thinking there's been all this meta and drama. Last thing I want to do is talk about the purpose of my channel, and yet that's what I felt like talking about. And so my rule of video making is if I feel like talking about that, I talk about it. And if it's like maybe I'm stuck too much on this meta and talking about and stuff and talking about the internet and people on the internet, um, well, if I'm too obsessed on that, that's going to be expressed on here. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. And then I thought, well, it's a good time to talk about negative space. Now that first video was not actually about negative space. Where I had the pictures and things. That video could have been titled "The Purpose of My Channel." I was talking about the purpose of my channel. Okay, and I wasn't going to be careful about, to use for negative space metaphor from graphic design. Often logos use negative space. And there's a drafting quality. There's techniques, and a lot of them are very careful techniques, because to really, decisively show something in negative space, you tend to want to be careful. If you blur these edges, people will miss that there's that shape in there. Of course, that's neat for a subliminal kind of negative space effect. That's very common. But anyway, so the technique there is, you just walk on the edge of the subject. You don't say what the subject is, but you get really close. So the first video, I didn't necessarily use the negative space that well. In the compliment to Math Fails, though, I did. Now there's a thing where basically I've been watching, let me just talk about you in the third person. Maybe you'll see this, Math Fails. Hi. I've been watching Math Fails video, your videos, Math Fails. See now, I'm a liar. And they're good, and I enjoy them, and they're sometimes funny, and I like them. I think it's a great presentation of philosophy, and I like the philosophy that I tend to see in there. And then I saw the one about the point of life, and went with the sort of pirate voice, I guess it was. And it's just all built up in me, and I was having one of those, fan type of moments, and I'm still having it. I think his stuff is really awesome. And yet, what I'm going to say, if I just am overflowing with that praise, that's sort of, you don't want to do that. And then, so I could, I compliment him, but make it more sane. And I just thought, well, no, I want to give him an extreme compliment because that's how I feel, but I'll give it in the negative space. And I think it was a pretty good example because, for example, I said that, I had a compliment, but I wasn't going to give it to him. Then I start describing this compliment and building up the compliment and saying how big it was. Okay, so I haven't given him a compliment, but the ontology of that is that there is a compliment I created that I have to give him, so there's no purpose for that compliment other than to give it to him. If I keep it to myself, he's still, the recipient of this praise that he doesn't know everything about, and then I'm describing what it's all about. These are tracing the outlines of a compliment. Now, on the other hand, I say something that could be, by a sensitive person, being taken as an insult, that maybe he's not real. But in this context, I also acknowledge that he might be an actor, and it changes the dynamics, and I was not critical of the idea that he might not be real, that he might be an actor. Now, add to that, viewers who I assume don't think he is an actor, he just seems like a regular YouTuber, you seem like a regular YouTuber, obviously, Math Fails. And if they could consider that, probably I could see that too, and that I know he's not an actor, well, then that becomes another part of the compliment, saying that, well, he's so good at his presentation, maybe he's a pro. So, to me, that is if I saw somebody make that video, I would know they were giving a compliment, but in a maybe, and not even a subtle way, a very obvious and unsubtle way, in a sort of indirect, maybe British humor kind of way, in a weird way, in a non-conventional language, arrangement, where you make a point by not making the point, but it is still clear that there's a point, okay, which is different from when maybe the first video where I just avoided saying that the point was the purpose of my channel. You would understand some of the purpose of my channel from watching that video. If that was the only video you ever saw and you were asked, what's the purpose of this guy's channel? Or what does he think the purpose is? You know, you could tell someone, even though you wouldn't have guessed that, no, that's actually what the video was about. That's what I was thinking about when I made that video. So in that kind of sense, you know, okay, you don't see the negative space. It's more just like that I avoid getting the point, which pisses some people off. Again, I don't see the purpose of necessarily always having a point of that sort. I mean, so I'm tolerant to that kind of thing. But much more defensible is this kind of technique where you do use negative space, and the thing, and it's just a metaphor. So there's other ways to think about this, but where you know, that the real point is between the lines, you know, and that's how a work of art works. You know, you have a novel. There's the words in the novel. They're good to read, but a big part of what makes them so great is what ends up coming in between the lines, so to speak, what fills out, you know, all these implications that are sitting there unsaid, but, you know, knowable, and they're perceivable, but they're like in shadow. And so, yeah. So this has given me an idea to talk about various literary and communication techniques, more literary techniques, things that I think are neat, but maybe in general just the communication language techniques. Some PH Value asked of me to make some videos on conflict and avoiding conflict or resolving conflicts, and I want to do that, and I've been thinking about that, and it's sort of related to that as well. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I don't know if anybody wants to reply to this. I mean, I just said a bunch of assertions about how I think of this negative space, but I was just playing around too. So it's not like I'm saying here's a lesson. If you want to give me feedback, I mean, this is a metaphor that I don't know if other writers apply this idea of negative space in writing. I know they apply the art of the unsaid, but do they think of it in terms of this negative space? I don't know. I have a graphical way of thinking. I like to have visual metaphors and graphical metaphors for things. So so anyway, feedback, you know, appreciated. Cheers. That was gross if you didn't cut that. Okay, bye.